The lovely pair and wind down of an Electrolux 302, my childhood vacuum, although this particular one is a later 302. Let's check we've got enough cable. Yes, we have. As you can tell by the badge on the front, is written in this sort of comic font, I always call it, and on the side you'll see Electrolux with the badge. Previous version didn't have that. So just been using this today just to do a bit of a clean up, and I thought, do you know what, it's about time that I got round to showing off the fact that I've got all of the vacuums pretty much that look like this, or the main four. I've actually got 5, but thinking about it, there's 6, but we'll get into that in a bit. But yes, I'll move you to another room, wrap this cord up from this lady, and we shall look at where the range started. And it starts in 1969 with the Z91. And here we are with the lady herself, the Z91. So I've had this for a few months now. It comes in this beautiful, I can't remember what the catalogue actually calls it, but it's like a flame red and some sort of off-white. This has gone very cream. It's discoloured over the years. And it actually comes from, if we can date it at the back, 16th week of 1970. And it should be a 500 watt motor. Now, it was the old style sprung motor with 4 springs one side, 4 springs another. Really quiet. It's got a paper bag. Ooh, looks a bit mucky in there, doesn't it? I alternate the bags between cylinders. That's why it might look a bit mucky, because they all eventually end up using the same one. But cloth bag, and then inside, metal body, no ring for support, just the open base. And you see at the bottom, see the plastic? That's the cover for the motor. So the motor comes in a plastic overall cover, clips on at the top, and that fits into this end here. Now I'm showing it you this way because this is the way it looks kind of as it should. If I flip it around the other, you'll notice the bit of badge missing. So I've got a bit of work to do there to try and tidy that up. But it's a bit like a sticker, and if I just lean in a bit more, that's slightly peeling away there. So if I can get some kind of sticky back plastic or something, do a bit of a Blue Peter, I might be able to fill that in, but I'd need a steady hand and measure it properly. It's quite basic in that it's just the general on-off switch. There's no automatic shut off, there's no bag check indicator, nothing like that. Got the grill at the bottom. You can see, look, that looks quite dirty, doesn't it, already? This was a new filter, but it's a bit of fun and games that I've been having with this one. So the one that came with it was matching this same kind of off cream, but most of this at the front was broken. All of that in the middle, that bit there and that bit there was all broken. And not all the pieces came in the box that the vacuum did, so I managed to get this off eBay. So I suppose it could be sprayed, so that's the thing for the future, but at least it works. But yeah, your blowing port is under there. And I mentioned a few moments ago that she should be a 500 watt motor. Now, my very dear friend Dave, hi Dave, did a sterling job a couple of months ago. He helped me to get the motor out and take it to bits and clean it up, kind of thing. And we put it all back together, and it worked very, very intermittently. The suction wasn't great. We thought that was probably something to do with the bag, but it kept cutting out, and then it just wouldn't come on at all. And I tried all the tricks of checking the fuse on the plug, checking checking the wiring to the switch. I've even changed the switch. In fact, the switch has been changed again. All the usual tricks just to make sure that things were as they should be. And thanks to Dave, because I saw him the other day, we got the motor completely apart. And what happened was, one of the carbon brushes over this short period had just disintegrated. So it was really, and also there was, I think there was a bit of a problem with the armature, but not the armature, the commutator. It was quite heavily scored and quite, it looked a bit too even that a comstick probably wouldn't have fixed the problem. So that motor, sadly, is bit the dirt. It's gone. So fortunately, I did have a spare similar type of motor, slightly later, but it was still in that plastic case from a 94, which was the follow-up model to this. That has gone into here for now. However, it's a lot more powerful than 500 watts, and you'll see in a minute when I turn this on. It's a bit too strong, to the point that when the cleaner is switched on, the tool engages with the floor and you block off the suction, the sides kind of pull in a bit because there's no retaining ring inside to prevent the body from bowing effectively. So yes, it works and it's great, but it's not quite as it should be. It doesn't sound as it should be. It's noisier because it's a later motor. It doesn't sound like a 91 should. So my plan is to see if I can get hold of an older cylinder, say something like a 65, because I think they come up quite regularly for sale on eBay and places like that. It's a slightly lesser wattage motor, I think it's about 450 possibly, but it would be the same type of motor. If I get a later 65, it should be the same type of motor that would have gone in this, and Dave will be able to work his magic and get that one into here, so that at least, yes, it won't be, to be honest, 50 watts, it's not going to make that much difference, but this isn't going to be used as a everyday let's go and clean the house. This is as a collection piece, but at least it will sound like a 91 should. And it's a pity I didn't record the brief times where the thing switched on, because you would hear exactly what I mean. But that's all for the future. So I'll run it now, but just bear in mind that it won't sound like a 91 should. Fingers crossed in the future, be able to come back when it's been motor changed yet again, and it will sound more like it should. It's probably a good example to try and retro-write. This certainly, this possibly. I'm unsure about getting the wheels off. I mean, the tyres will come off, but there's all like metal axles and things, which I'm not sure I really want to submerge in water. But as an example of this type, it is pretty sweet still. It's all been cleaned, it just doesn't look as great as some of my others. But then these are so rare that it's not likely I can just get out and pick up another one. So we'll get this going in a minute. In fact, we'll do it at the end of the video. But I can just show you as well, while you're here, without too much clanging. Oop, just readjust. I have what is near enough the correct hose. It's certainly the correct end here. Needs a bit of a clean up actually. These get very scratched, metal into metal. But yeah, it's lesser suction control, but gains a hand grip, which is quite nice to hold. The braided type. And then the difference with this one, whoops, is at the other end, you wouldn't have had a double collar. You would have basically had what looks like that. Slightly different design. This is a bit longer. This has come from later, but it still effectively would have been a stub like that would have gone into the cleaner. So this fits marvellously. And we're not going to split hairs, obviously. Purists won't approve, but you know, I can only work with what I've got. And obviously it would have come with the standard Electrolux wand. And it also came with this. So this is, I don't really know what you would call this. the two-way floor tool, potentially. I do have the manual for this vacuum, but I haven't got it to hand, so I can't check. It's a sort of flip over floor tool, but not quite. You would flip it over that way because it has the thread picker. So to go at the threads, however, there's only let me see if I can adjust it properly because it's got a mind of its own. There's only a tiny bit of a gap for the suction. So by rights, it should suck the threads up as you go over it. But really, it's this side that you want for doing your cleaning because there's a hole in the middle, but that is quite a large gap for the suction to penetrate. And the interesting thing with this one is you press in the middle, it's quite difficult to do it when it's not on the floor, but you press one side, I'll have to do it like this. Let's readjust, bear with. You press on the middle, you press on the, sorry, start again. You press on the side and the brushes come down, that's right. You can see I've only used this a couple of times. So there you go for hard floors, off it, it's ready to go. To retract the brushes, that's when you press the middle. And you hear the click, and the brushes have gone back in, and we're back into carpet mode. So, she's all together, back in one piece, and there is like a famous advert, I think, for this cleaner from late 60s, early 70s, where there's a lady where she's got it kind of in this pose with the floor tool next to the cleaner. Perhaps one day I'll set that up here and I'll try and recreate it, but we haven't got time for that now. Of course we haven't. So let's put that to one side for now. We should demo the 91 at the end. Okay, so we have a piece of our puzzle like this. So 1969 to about 1971, I think, we had the 91. To replace that, we had the 94. So it's very similar. I'll just unclip the flex off here. There we go. Let's flip you to one side. There we go. So, front-wise, on the top, pretty similar. So it's just the vinyl. This one doesn't have vinyl, or if it is vinyl, it's not ribbed. It's sort of dappled, whereas this is the traditional, what I would call the traditional ribbed Electrolux vinyl. Makes that funny noise. That's just childhood noise to me. But yeah, 94, little badge on there, and then the Electrolux symbol branding on the side. And it can be hung up. They can all be hung up. They all would have come with a hook. So you can see here, that's where the hook would have gone. And this one is from 20th week of 1972. So she's 2 years younger than our 91. This one was a 550 watt motor, so 500 watts more than the 91. Following that, we have, ta-da, my childhood favourite. This design was my childhood vacuum. This came in 1974, end of 74, and ran through to 79. But in a slightly different guise later on. But you see on this one, you can tell it's an early one because it says 302 and then made in, does it say made in England? I can't read backwards. Yeah, made in England. There we go. So this one was made in Luton, and this one is from, just put my glasses on, 47th week of 1975. So this is the first 302 that I got as part of my collection. I think, in fact, it might have been the first collectible vacuum that I picked up. So that also runs like a treat. That's 650 watts. And at the time that this was out, you could also get slightly different variation. So we've got this badge on there, and we've got 302, But there were versions that were made in Sweden that didn't say made in England because they were made in Sweden. I haven't got one of those anymore. I did have, but it was scrap. So by rights, there should be a little gap there, but we're not going to worry too much about that now. So I mentioned 302 ran till 1979. Midway through, the design changed to this type of badge. And on the side, which you probably can't see now, but I did show you earlier, it says Electrolux with the badge. But if we just get this one back again, this just says Electrolux and there's no badge. So that's how you can always tell. They're the two ways to tell. Okay. And then the final version of this design was the 303. I've shown you that a few times before. So this again, 650 watts, ran from 79 to 82, I think. Yeah, 79 to 82, and was pretty much identical to these two. The only thing that was different was the colour. And again, a bit like the later 302, it's got the name and the Electrolux badge on the side, but everything that you got in terms of the vacuum itself was the same. So there we have our little family. I've already shown you the tools for the 91. So we had this sort of floor tool, and we have this kind of hose. Clang, clang, clang. What did we get with the 94? Excuse me, the 94 came with this sort of hose. So basic 3-pin connection, braided. And when we get to the handle end, we have a nice plastic hand grip, slightly discoloured, as you'll see. And the suction control is different. So the suction control is side to side. So if you look at models like 345, 330, 310, they would have had a suction control that goes top to bottom. So forward to close it, pull it back to release some of the suction. This one's side to side. I always call it side to side suction control. So this came with a 94. Got a long extension rod, and it came with one of these. So the deluxe flip over floor tool. I think, am I right that this would have been the first time that this came out with a vacuum? I think it probably would have already been out, but in the toolkit for the 500 upright, I think. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that came out in 71, and the toolkit definitely came with one of these, and it's in the manual, so I think, oh, mind you, they would have come out at the same time, wouldn't they? Yeah, they must have hit the shops at the same time, perhaps. So yeah, ignore what I just said then. But this would have been the first cylinder, I think, that this came with. So that's that. This hose, this example of this hose is not brilliant. I have re-ended the bottom because I've learned how to do it, but it's just not great. There's gaps in the middle of it and stuff. So it's more for completeness rather than for use. So let's get that out of the way. Whoop, there we go. And then we come to the 302. What did the 302 have? Well, we saw it earlier. Similar kind of hose as the 94. However, we've lost the plastic grip and we've just got a metal hand grip. But the same suction control, same connection at the end. Oops, banging into things. And for some people, most people, 99% of people, sadly, this cleaner was let down by this. The cheapest of the cheap flip over floor tools. Actually, this isn't the cheapest of the cheap. This is the cheapest of the cylinder flip over floor tools at this point. I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because 60s knowledge is not great for me. I think this would have come with a 77 towards the end of the 60s. So that would have been the first to feature this lovely tool. This is what I grew up with. My formative years were with one of these. It was all I knew, so I quite like it. And for my hard floors downstairs, this way, absolutely perfect. Yeah, not as effective that way, but for mats and things, spot on. Is if you really want to be cleaning a carpet like this, you need a turbo brush. Even things like this are not very good on it. But we're not here to criticise, we're here to enjoy. One thing I didn't point out as well, the 94's hose, this actually continued on with the 305 when that came in 74. And then the braid was replaced by crush-proof. But that's just an aside, And then we get to the old 303, and I've just realised I'm going to have to lean around the camera because we entered crush-proof territory. Towards the end of the 302 run, that would have had a crush-proof hose, but I haven't actually got one of those to show you. That's on my list of I would love to have one of those. But yeah, 303, we get the similar sort of hose end, so no grip and side-to-side suction, but matching red plastic to match the design of the cleaner. And we also had our metal rod again, but we've reverted to the deluxe flip over floor tool. And these in the 70s had the metal piece at the bottom. And we get into the 80s with the 350s and things like that, slimlines, they didn't have the metal, it was just plastic. So slightly different design, but effectively the same tool. Although there's pictures of 303s with the non-metal version, but it's an ongoing debate really. Electrolux were never really that consistent with what they put out, so it's highly likely that they did put perhaps some of these out with slimlines and some of the non-metal ones out with 303s. There's nobody to ask, nobody knows for sure. We've definitely seen 302s with the deluxe floor tool, and we've seen, 330 with the non-matching small tools, and even 305 with the wrong colour tools and things as well. So who knows? Whoever was unpacking that day, whether they'd been to the pub the night before in Luton, that's a possibility. But yeah, so that was just a brief overview. Let's move that out of the way. That I now have the family. I call it the 302 family. I suppose we should call it the 91 family, seeing as that's the oldest. But here we are. You're all back together. You're all in a little kind of semicircle. And yeah, I'm very, very happy to have these because, like I say, this was my childhood vac, and it's nice to bring it back with its relatives. And they all work. This one will work better or more like it did originally, but for now, this is, when I see them all together like this, I just get so excited. Ideally, one day we could have the one that goes in between here from Sweden. It's not the end of the world. It looks pretty much like that, and it sounds the same. So I'll move these out of the way. I'll get the 91 set up. I'll just push it around, and just so you can hear that it doesn't sound like a 91 should. Mr. Steve, who has Vintage Appliance Emporium, he's got a beautiful 91. Go and check out his video because he talks more clearly about it than I do, and his runs beautifully, just as it should do. So if you want to see that now, go to Steve's channel, come back to me in, I don't know, a year or whatever, and we'll have that running and sounding like it should. But yeah, bear with, and I'll get it out. Right, she's all set up, so here we go. And just bear in mind, it will sound more like a later Electrolux. Yeah, so you hear that wind down. That is not how the 91 should sound when it's winding down. It should be the sort of a nice deep resonating hum that you get with say like my 87 or my 94. But for the meantime, or for the time being rather, this works as a usable vacuum. You know, power running to it, it picks up. I'll turn it around that way because that's the nicest side. There we go. You can sort of see. So yeah, I'm really pleased to have it. I love the colour. Even the fact that it's faded is not really to its sort of detriment. But yeah, it will get done. I will get a 65 or something like that to use that motor for here. But in the meantime, if you've got any questions or any requests or anything like that to do with any of these vacuums that I've shown, just give me a shout. Comment below. Tell me if you hate it, whatever you like. Suggestions even for retro brighting. Is there a cheap and nasty way to do it, a quick way? And I'll have an experiment. Although we're running out of sunshine at the moment, summer for the moment seems to have gone, or at least it's gone behind the clouds. But yeah, there you go, 91 and its family. And yeah, lovely, lovely little addition to my collection.